Welcome back to Build Beyond with TecTon. Today we have Nathan and Lehi, and I'm your host, Burt Carlisle. Nathan will be getting interviewed in today's episode, and it'll be me and Lehi. We'll just ask him questions and get you some information about who he is and how he got where he is today in TecTon. So, Nathan, today then we'll start with your childhood. I'm going to ask you, what was your childhood like, and what's some of your earliest memories?
Being stung by a bee.
So
I was out in the yard, and it's really impactful, right? I was out in the yard twinking around, and Mom had told me not to, because we all knew where a hive of wasps were. It was in the power box, or around the power box. And Mom would tell me, don't go over there. And even Josh would try to, like the kind brother he was, he'd always try to, when he seen me going over there getting curious, he'd go drag me away. But that didn't stop me. I finally went to check out those bees, and I stuck my hand up under the cover to pull the cover off, and the fucking things stung me. So that was impactful, that lesson. I mean, the lesson's obvious. Listen to the people that want to keep you safe. But sometimes you got to learn the hard way. You know, like, don't mess with those wasps. Remember crying for hours over that. And then I had an experience this past week to really think on think deep about some of the most impactful things as a childhood that I could remember. And one of the most impactful thing to me was Mom reading to me as a kid. I was up on the top bunk, and Josh was on the bottom bunk, and she'd read to us a Rory story or something like that. Clifford the Big Red Dog, Curious George, whatever these stories were, and it wasn't so much the stories, it was that Mom was reading to us. It was super impactful. And so that has an influence on me today.
That's amazing. I read to my kids a lot, and that I didn't even think that they'll remember that, but maybe they will. Maybe that's because I don't remember Mom reading to me that much, but I remember her reading to you guys.
Yeah.
So that's interesting, and having it have an impact must have meant. Was it because she was spending time with you, or what was the?
I don't want to. I don't want to come across as someone that doesn't appreciate all that a mom does for their kids, but our mom in particular, as you guys know, she was a strict, hard-nosed mom, right?
Yeah.
And it was all the other times that I didn't get that true loving mother that made these moments that she was actually sitting down reading to us a story that we loved and spending time with us.
Instead of trying to push like religion or something.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I get that. That makes sense.
Yeah.
So, how old were you? Let's talk about Dad. Did you have, what kind of relationship did you have with Dad and stuff and your youngest age? Because I remember you being his little favorite for a while because you was the youngest. And
yeah, I think that I have that, like being the youngest and being pet. I think that my experience with Dad came at a time when he had nothing better to do than to soften how he treated his children and exert more of his feelings and love than trying to drive. Like one of the times that this was my nature, and I've heard a couple of my bigger brothers talk, it is so much different. But this was my remembrance of Dad. Is one time during church, then Josh and I would get, like, Josh got in the Chrysler little car, and I got in the green truck, and we just cruised the town.
And how old were you?
I was 9.
9
Josh
years
was
old.
11.
Stole his dad's truck
that.
at 9 years old.
No, this was a Saturday, and Dad was gone on what I'm going to call, for the sake of not knowing something better, date night with Mom for the day. And so it was during this, and one of Mom's sisters seen us and called and told Mom and Dad about it. So we were out cruising donuts and everything. I started feeling guilty, so I went home about 20 minutes earlier than Josh. And I remember passing a cop on my way home, and I was getting up on my toes, just really acting big, so they couldn't tell I was so young. But I got home, and the home phone, back then we didn't have cell phones, except for older people.
Yeah.
And the home phone was ringing off the hook, so I answered it, and it was Dad. And he says he went through the verbal lashing about he knows what we're doing and all this, and to prepare ourselves for a whooping. And so when Josh got home, it was going to be a couple hours before Dad got home. When Josh got home, then we went downstairs and we just brainstormed about how we were going to prepare for this whooping, because we knew it was going to sting. We knew it was going to sting. So we were down there sweating. Josh filled his butt full of pop cans, aluminum cans. I put a couple pillows in my ass.
Help absorb the impact.
Yeah. And when Dad got home, I remember he couldn't help but laugh. But come back to the point of my relationship with Dad is he didn't give us a whooping. He grounded us for a couple of days, but he didn't give us a whooping.
Yeah.
And so I really did have that soft part of Dad, based on the experiences my older brothers had. But one of the most impactful things that Father did for me was taught me chess. Like, he let me win. He showed me how to win. He did all that to show me how to move through life. What I know it now is how to move through life as a game of chess. That's one of the most impactful things that Father did for me.
So you talk about the experience when he had his stroke and passed away, and the impact that had on you as a young man, and what you took out of that experience.
Looking back on it, I was full of emotions. Father was the man in my life. Father was the person that, in a little more of a funny nature, he was the person that saved me from our moms. He was the person I ran to. He was a person that I loved to snuggle with, going to bed. He always loved, I'm sure you guys remember, he always wanted one arm around you when he was going to bed. Sometimes I had so much energy I wanted to get out and go, but those are the impactful times that he had that led up to when those were the things I was going to miss when he was having his stroke and was on his deathbed.
And how old were you at that time?
11.
11. Yeah, that's rough.
Yeah, I was 11. I was going to be turning 12 that year, so yeah, I was 11 first part of the year. And it was just all emotions. And when it was done, I had nothing but my make a go in life. You know, looking back on it, it's like, what else did I have? My older brothers were all moving, not all, but eventually, I mean, one by one, they were moving out of the house. Mother was in pain, often took it out on us. And there was 3 months there that was just pure hell. When we and you'll remember this, when we lived up on Utah Avenue, up close to Utah Avenue.
Yeah.
It was Nephi part-time, and then Josh and I home with Mother. Those were pure hell. But it was just getting through them. Mother was in utmost pain. To her, some of her children had just left the work and were being damned and lost salvation, and all those theories, the stories that they told themselves. All she could do is she lost her husband and what she calls today her whole world, and she had 2 little kids that were being naughty all day, just wayward, and she was in a lot of pain and often took it out on us. Those were.
And I stayed there with y'all for a while, but I was always gone to work.
Yeah.
And so I didn't even see how that impacted you in that way, where it was you and Josh at home, because that was literal. Yeah, I remember that era.
Oh yeah, there was that was one positive note about that deal, and it's where I learned to cook rice. I wanted some cinnamon rice, and Mom was busy trying to bring in money, trying to live with her new reality. So she told me I had to cook my own rice. So I went and cooked it, and that damn rice was taking forever to cook, and the water it wasn't you're supposed to put the right amount of water with the rice and then let it cook, and when it's done, then all that water's absorbed. In a nutshell, I didn't know that, and I was just being patient. So halfway through the cooking process, I get a strainer and pour all the rice out and let the water drain, thinking it was done because I was burning it. And then I put it back on the heat, and it got all burnt, nasty.
Then you burnt it.
Yeah. I think Mom laughed about that. Mother laughed on that one. So that was, but those were the times that, and I don't want to dwell on that, but that was hell.
So what was it that obviously that was very impactful, but how did you successfully channel that moment to becoming what you are today?
I don't think that those times had an impact on my life till I got older and looked back and looked at the good in it. So I don't, most of over half of what I've learned through my life is what not to do. The age from 11 to 21 to 20 or whatever, 90% of what not to do.
Mm-hmm.
I ain't gonna treat my kids that way. I ain't leaving my kids. You know, I'm gonna do everything I can, that if when adverse situations come my way, I'm not gonna take it out on my kids, and I have a reason not to. Yeah. Right? You know, I have that memory of when it was done to me.
How that made you feel and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So how old were you when you got your first job after Dad passed away, and how old were you when you got your first job? And
so
where was it?
I mean, I took responsibility. I took responsibility when I was 13, 14 of milking the cow and taking care of the chores. We had, probably 3 hours out of the day. And then weeding the gardens for when we moved in with our uncle. Then that's when I started learning responsibility. I mean, up until then, it was just dishes, right? Like that's the only responsibility I ever, and cleaning the yard, that I ever had at home until we moved with the uncle, and we were milking the cow and all this stuff. And then age 16, I think, is when I got my first actual job. It was either 15 or 16. And no, it was 15. I remember because I got my driver's license at 15 and a half, my learner's permit, and I was working at the granite shop at that time. So it was 15 and a half, and it was at a granite shop and right down here, not even 2 miles from our office, our studio here. And it just, I tried to grow in that, but I mean, who's going to let a 15-year-old start running CNCs and big saws and making decisions, right? So I was just polishing and grinding on stone at that point. And then and then from there we just went to a couple different other companies.
So, what was your in construction after you worked at the granite shop, the countertop place? What was your next construction job?
It was framing. So I went from the granite shop to a machine shop in Vegas. That machine shop relocated to, I was there for about a year and a half, and I excelled there as far as I could go. I always wanted to learn more, like the machine shop. I ain't going to get ahead of myself because I have a little story there. Then I got sick of going to Vegas every week, so I went back to the granite shop and then at that point I was able to start excelling. I was running the saw, I was running the CNC part-time. So I was able to excel there. And then I went from there. The machine shop ended up moving from Vegas to the creek, to Hilldale. And then I went back to work there for 8 months. And that, when I really started stacking up the wins with myself, there was a particular part, and anybody that's worked in a machine shop would know that you load the stock, it gets all drilled, all milled, whatever, and then as soon as you pull the stock out, you have to deburr all this, and you have to finish up edges that are burrs that are caused by the machining. And there was 8 parts that come off at a time, and it took a good 10-15 minutes to deburr each part. And one of the things that we always wanted to do when we were at the machine shop was, number one, produce more parts, but also have time. Because we got bonuses and stuff if we would go to QA and do some quality control while our machine was running. Well, we couldn't do that if we were always deburring these parts. Another problem is everybody would get lazy deburring those parts, so we would have thousands of parts being rejected from QA, and then it would just do a whole shop get together and deburr all these parts. A lot of wasted time. And so I, in my desire to get better, then I started thinking. I was thinking, okay, this tool causes this burr, because there's another tool that comes and does its job after. So if this tool just comes and redoes its job after this tool gets done, it'll remove that burr itself. And that literally takes 10 seconds for that tool to come redo that. Because you can do it way faster because it's not cutting anything. It's just removing the burr. And so I took that theory to my shift head, and he laughed at me. Says, no, that's going to add, we figured it was 45 seconds for 8 parts total to do this. And he laughed at me. And so when I was on day shift, and night shift was a little more liberal, you could do a little more, and like all the bosses were gone, all the programmers were gone. And fortunately enough, I had a login to the programming part of the job, and I went in there and made those changes myself. And then I was there for 4 months after, and not one part got rejected from Q&A after that.
Seriously? Did they recognize?
No, I was too scared. I would never tell them what I did.
So you didn't even say, look what happened.
I was too scared.
I was right.
But I chalked it up as a win to myself. And that's when my self-confidence started growing.
That's pretty cool story.
That is a good story.
And it also allowed me to know that I didn't need other people's approval. Like, and if anybody's been in business, that's a huge thing.
Yeah.
As long as you know you're doing well, other people's approval is irrelevant.
Yeah.
Because it's that self-confidence in yourself that is the most valuable self-confidence.
Mm. And then from there, you said you went framing.
Oh, yeah. So from there, some shifts happened at home. I moved out of the main house and was being demoted to a wicked guy in the community. I ain't gonna name it, call it whatever they called it, because it's not relevant. But I was a wicked guy in community, and so I wanted to get out and go to work for weeks at a time. So I went to work for a framing company, and as we were going through framing, then I started framing, and I'd start crowning all the studs the right way, and I always questioned why I did things. I always have. Why do I do this? And as one of my first walls, I remember this very well, is I was crowning all the studs, and I'm questioning myself, why do we have to crown these studs? And then it clicked to me that back in the granite times, when we were installing granite, if the framers would always crown their studs, we wouldn't have to scribe around all the bows in the wall.
Exactly.
So then you knew why you crowned
Yeah,
the
and so
studs.
from after that, that was like a very much a strict, important impact to the job. So, that framing company is where I learned to be responsible. It's where I was out on my own. There was times that's where my big audacious dream began about becoming a known founder CEO of a worldwide company. Is just envisioning what could happen in my future, and going through that and learning all how to become responsible out there. I was there for 2 years, became a foreman first for a pickup crew, going and finishing up jobs, doing the punch items and all that, and then excelled from that to running projects and just chalking up the wins after wins after wins. And it came evident that I weren't going to be able to grow outside of just a crew foreman in that company. So I reached out to one of my best friends, Gerald Jessup, and I just says, "Hey, what would you do in this situation? Like, I don't really want to quit, but I want to learn more. I want to do more. I want to be more valuable. I want to do more." And he's seen something in me, and he's like, "Well, come work for me. You can do my estimating and project managing. I'll teach you how. I'll show you how, and you can do it here." So that's the direction I went, as I went and learned that part, and that was just a small company, and I did as well as I did there, to the point where a larger company, BZI Steel, hit me up and wanted me to come do that for them, estimate for them, and do all that. And it was at that company, through all these different levels I did at the different companies, like at the framing company, I was there for 5 years. I learned 3.5, 4 years. I learned how to manage people in the field, how to get the field work done with my tool belt on. At G10, I learned how to start up a startup business, how much you needed to be in each sector. But as I moved to BZI, it was a whole new perspective. It was a perspective of how we grew an already successful business, because that's the phase they were in. And also, like, over at G10, they do steel erection as well as BZI. They just do it on a smaller scale. Like, their average job was $50K. At BZI, the average job was $1.5 to $2 million. And what that taught me was the processes were the same. Estimating was the same. execution, PMing was the same. Bringing in the money was the same. Everything was the same. It was just on a higher scale. You just needed more people. That's all you needed. Processes were the same. And so it really opened my eyes to thinking bigger. And so that was my, after I had those eyes open, I actually tried to grow in that company and see, push some pressure points in the company to see if I had room to grow there. And I, quite frankly, there's some very proud people there that there was no way someone this young and this quick was going to grow in the business.
Yeah.
So at that point, I knew I had to go on my own.
Yeah. So that brings you too close to the 2017 mark, or
Yeah.
what era was that?
No, that was the first part of 2017. I actually started my first framing my first house. TecTon started its first house on my birthday. The very day I chalked lines on my own birthday, which was really cool.
Wow, that is cool. The first job for TecTon. Then.
Yeah.
Oh, that is
We
cool.
were organized in August of 2017. I started getting the groundwork, learning the sales, the booking. I started meeting accounting people. I started meeting insurance people. So the groundwork started in August, and then I actually started my company, or put the first chalk on the.
What were some of the struggles on getting started up?
I quite frankly, because of the hands-on experience of going through a startup only a year and a half before it was really fresh on my mind. Yeah. So I can tell you a lot of the potential problems I would have had, and then I can get into, like, my problems started coming in when I tried to start pulling myself out of the company. Because how to start the company, how to grow the company, on the back, like all the groundwork, that was so fresh on my mind. I'd already done it. Like, I had all the insurances, I had all the licenses, I had all the bookkeeping in order, I had payroll set up, I had everything. Like, I really started out quite flawless. Like, there was little lessons I'd learned throughout it, right? But I also, one of the biggest things that I had that I realized I needed up front is money. Because we're BZI, when I was there, was doing 25-30 million a year. It's amazing that's all they were doing.
Yeah,
when I worked for them. We're almost there.
Yeah,
so surprising. It's like, but they were still borrowing money for payroll and to pay the Amex bill. That right there was so impactful to me. Like, that was something I learned not to do. I'm like, my cash flow is the most important thing. The cash in my bank is the most important thing. But you can't get away from needing cash, to borrowing cash in a startup. So I really learned all the ground rules through the experience. I had an investor who invested in me up front for a percentage of the business. And then he opened up a hard money line of credit for me for that percent. Like, for the percentage that he had, he only wanted X percent. But I says, I'll give you this percent for the same money, but you open up $100,000 line of credit for me. And so that structure allowed me to always have the cash I needed to
go after jobs,
to
start jobs, to do payrolls, till you got paid, all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
That's pretty cool.
It is.
But one of the things I want to say, I don't want to get way out of this, and maybe you were going to ask this question, was knowing how to do it's only one thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, knowing the steps is only one thing. Yeah. Like, how do you execute?
Execution.
How do you change your habits to execute? That all comes to knowing yourself. And around the same time that I started going from company to company, learning things, what I also did is went from act to act each day, wondering why I did what I did as a person. And that was an internal study. Like nobody knew I was going through that. But every act I did, I always looked back to see, why did I do that? Something triggered me or something made me do that. Like, and you don't always need to change them. You just need to know why.
So, that got you started in TecTon, and you landed your first job down here in St. George.
No, it was in Cedar City.
In Cedar.
Yeah, well, I did five homes in Cedar City and 7 plexes in Cedar City before I came down to St. George.
Nice. So through all of that, did you have like hobbies and stuff like that, or was you pretty much nose to the grindstone all the time, working through that era?
Besides jacking off, I didn't have any hobbies. I golf a little bit. Like I would go to the driving range, but I was so scared of my terrible golf. I didn't want to go out on the golf course. So I just spent for the first 2 years year and a half, 2 years that I was golfing, I was technically only just out putting and chipping and on the driving range. So that I would say that was a hobby I had. But no, I was all nose to the grindstone.
Well, it seems like that's what it takes, is good hard work and focus.
Mostly the focus part.
Yeah,
hard work. A lot of people do hard work, but they don't focus on
what's going to grow.
Yeah.
Well, I would say that I'd say that the company never started growing until I started making decisions to make money instead of the next act to make money.
Yeah.
That's a good point.
Sense, yeah.
That's a good point. So what is it, does it have any impact, or do you find it humorous that being the youngest brother and now you have 3 partners that are older than you? Is that like...
I'd never find it humorous in front of you guys. I'm going to be a little vulnerable here. I hope my partners will forgive me on this, but I one day I just found, I just woke up and I was kind of like, what the hell, you know? And I just, in the thought, I was thinking like, who could understand my humors, like without like feeling like they're... So I didn't want to call one of you guys, so I called Mom. And I said, Mom, like, what do you think of this? Because she's the only one that could actually give me insights. Because then again, I still want to figure out why I have the thoughts that I have, why I do what I do. So I called her, and she really put it to where, like, I don't treat it lightly anymore. Like it's I wouldn't call it humorous anymore, because she really put it to reality. She says, Nate, you were always the one that was doing your own thing.
Well, and I think era and time frame and like that had a lot to do with it, but you were doing your own. I agree with that. You were doing your own thing. Even if it was with like Josh as a young kid, but you always have kind of done your own thing. So I guess that is a good way to put it.
One of the things that I would say is we are who we are for 2 reasons: what we've gone through and what we did with what we've gone through.
Mm-hmm.
And so, like, I can only take 50% of the credit, and that being what I did with what I went through. The other 50% of the credit is what God, nature, had me go through.
Your experiences in life.
Yeah.
Biology plus choices equals results.
Yep.
So let's talk about maybe your family. You got tell us your size of your family and how old they are.
So I like go back a little bit. So when this actually had an impact on where I'm at today. I had all the chances in the world to become a drinker. someone that would go to bars, pick up girls. I used to be sexy, believe it or not. I used to be 160 pounds and fairly ripped because I worked all the time. But I didn't want that because of the past. I seen some of my close friends, relatives go through going down that road, and I didn't want to go down that road so bad that in all my self-study, I found out that I needed a woman. I needed a woman in my life, or I was going to be caught down that route. So that's what gave me the confidence to still somewhat believe in the religion, but yet the fortitude to know what I needed to do to remain in the religion, so to speak. So I started looking for a girl inside the religion that could possibly have those same thoughts. And that's when I met Tammy. And after about 8 months of exploring each other's feelings about the religion, about life, whatever, about each other, is when we found out that we aligned so much on the aspect of, you know what, like, yeah, we were trying to hold fast to our values. And by the way, I'm not a part of the religion anymore. Obviously I evolved out of it, but this is the story of me coming out of the religion. Really, is I found Tammy, who we both had the same thoughts, and it's kind of funny. Like we both hated victims, people that were victimizing themselves of the religion. So we steer ourselves away from that and come to a point where we decide, you know what, this is what's best for us. And it's part of the reason why we're not actually, quote unquote, married yet, is because for the longest time, we didn't want to get married because we were still going to get married by the leadership, because we felt like we were still good and a part of it, right? It went so long that, like, we were obviously out. We were dressing normal. We were going vacation on the beach. And we still hadn't come to terms on our feelings about Warren Jeffs. I was still scared. She was still scared to come to. And just one day I finally just like, well, fuck it, you know? And so I told her, and she's like, really? I've been needing to come talk to you about that. I'm really, you know. And so at that moment, then we knew that we're good. We have our own lives. We're going to grow. And Tammy's 2 years older than me. By this time, it's like 28. She's 28, almost 29. No, she was 29. Yeah, she was flat out 29. And she's just like, Nate, I'm not getting any older or any younger. And she's a medical person by trade, for like, she was on ambulance, EMT, whatever. And she knows the human body, and she knows the older the ladies get, the harder it is to bear children. And we've always talked to at least 4, but maybe even 6 kids. And she just says, I'm not getting any older or younger. So we need to get going. So we started. So our oldest is 2.5. She'll be 3 in June, and our youngest will be 1 in June. So nice. So, our oldest is little girl Tanae, and our youngest is little boy Thomas Elmo. So
fun. Well, then the true purpose of life comes out when the kids do. At least that's with my experience.
Absolutely. I feel like the kids solidified my purpose in life. I had a purpose, and that is to become successful, become free by having money, having resources that I need, that I'm not umbrelled underneath the government, because government will take care of you, right? But I don't want that. So I had that vision, but it wasn't until I had kids and solidified my relationship with Tammy that now my purpose becomes real. Now that purpose becomes solid and real.
Okay.
That's good. Well, is there anything else, like inspirational or lessons that you want to share with us before we?
I think one of the things, and I alluded it a couple of weeks ago when I was interviewing you, which you're doing a way better job of interviewing me. thanks for doing the groundwork. Like I was watching you write down like bulletin points. I'm like, holy shit, I can still learn shit. The most impactful things when it comes to my relationship with people around me. Number one, don't have a relationship. Don't have a relationship with people that you don't look up to. Why would you? That's my opinion. Number two, be open to their feedback, even if it hurts.
The same people that you have a relationship.
Whoever you look up to.
Yeah.
Be open to their feedback.
Yeah.
I look up to my 1-year-old and 3-year-old. I want their feedback on how I'm treating them because I want to improve it.
Yeah.
So it doesn't matter who it is. Just be able to look up to them because then you welcome their feedback and we improve through feedback.
Yeah. As long as we accept it and do something with it.
But isn't it fair to say that you will accept it if you look up to that person?
Oh yeah. No, for sure.
Yeah.
That's been my experience through life.
Like the story that I alluded to, I told 3 weeks ago was on your interview was when you told me I needed to grow up. When up till then, like you were my idol, you were my mentor, like, but up till then, I thought you liked me because of how I was.
Oh, because your
Yeah.
little cocky attitude and
I
little
thought-
buzzsaw.
Yeah, I thought you liked me because of that.
Isn't that what I attacked when I said?
Yeah. It was me hanging on and bugging you all the way out to your truck. And then as you were getting in, you said, stop that. You did something about like, quit it. And I says, hey, if I weren't this way, you wouldn't like me. And you attacked that. You're just like, no, everybody would like you more.
Yeah.
Nobody likes how you're acting.
Makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, I guess we all have those moments, especially in our young days, that have
Absolutely.
that big impact. I mean, I have several of them, and so.
But you know what you did after you did that?
What?
You gave me a headlamp.
Well,
And back in those days, headlamps were the golden deal because we were going out milking the cows and we needed a nice
Yeah.
headlight. And this was a couple $100 headlight.
well, maybe I learned that from some.
But I'm just simply saying, like, you need feedback to improve. And we're doing ourselves a disservice if we're not giving feedback to those that look up to us.
Especially
It's
if they
wrong.
ask. Especially
Yeah.
if they ask. Yeah.
Well,
And
I
being
would
honest,
say- I would-
honest in that feedback.
Yeah, I would say that even if they don't ask, just know they want it. They just don't know how to ask for it. They
Yeah.
might be too proud to ask for it, but they know they need it.
Yeah.
I take that lesson. Like, I didn't want your feedback. I didn't know how to tell you that I needed your feedback. But you just-
certainly
you
didn't
just
want
gave
that
it.
feedback. Yeah.
You just gave it and it changed my life.
But it was easy for Big Brother to be a little blunt and rude. And
Was
and
it
that,
easy
but-
because you'd never done it before?
I don't know if
So
I felt
impactful.
bad. I must have felt bad if I gave you a lamp after, but
Yeah, like you must have. But like, I mean, that showed me like you hit me with the feedback. And then you says, look, man, I still love you, but fucking change.
yeah, well, I kind of felt sorry for my littlest brothers during that time, like, because that was why he was living with Warren, and
Yeah.
that was quite the times. Well, if you got any more questions for Nate?
No,
Yeah.
he covered anything I was gonna. Pretty good.
Seemed like a great interview. And thanks for joining us today. Remember to like and subscribe and share the show. And we'll see you again next week.